How's it going?
Great.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you for, first and foremost, thank you for what you do every single day. You know, when we talk about education, it's a special place where we get a chance to really create magical moments for every one of our learners. At the same token, being able to build capacity systemically for every one of our adults that champion this work, and most importantly, work on the behalf of kids and not only in the four walls we call our classroom, but opportunities not only within the common areas, within our communities, in a way to create systemic change for our learners every single day. Now, I want you to imagine this. I'm going to get this slide. Sorry, it's going to be difficult, but we'll get through it. I want you to imagine coming into a school district. You're the first hire out of, outside of the county in 50 years. You are facing, you can change the slide. You are facing a $150 million deficit that you identify in the first 2 months. You can keep going to the next slide. You are getting to a point where in your first week, is the first week of COVID, where you have to shut down 250 schools, 220,000 students, and 25,000 employees, and you transition to a school district that doesn't know you. One that has had systemically hired internal candidates that they know, that they grew up with, that have been in classrooms with, and that they trust. In that process, the 2 months that you identify the $150 million deficit, you find out in your financial model that you are unable to pay 25,000 employees in November of 2020, and that you have to go out for the first time ever and get a TAN note. Meanwhile, you're leading behind the screen, and you have to cut 1,500 jobs to stay off of the front of the Wall Street Journal because you're the 7th largest school district in the nation. Your bond rating's crashing. You're leading behind the screen. No one knows you. You're cutting all these jobs. You're looking at proactive ways to keep the school district afloat. This was my first 8 months in Hillsborough County. I would say lots of fun. You know, we talk about where, over hundreds of people apply for the job. You go through the process, you win the job, but you always have to read those asterisks that allows you to lead you to learn that there's so many complexities in that process. However, in education, we never know the cards that we are dealt. Our job is to roll up our sleeves, find proactive solutions, and work every single day on behalf of children and not adults. So today we'll talk about recognizing the profound shifts in leading outside of the pandemic. How do we empower our employees? How do we empower our staff? What do we do logistically? What do we do from a foundational piece? How do we incorporate technologies? And how do we strengthen our work to create the greatest optimism and belief systems that we have, where you move at the speed of trust? And it's hard to do being the first outsider in 50 years in order to create systemic change in our school district. In Hillsborough County, one thing that we understand, you can change the slide, sorry. In Hillsborough County, one thing that we can keep going, this was the one that I was trying to get to that shows all the complexities. One thing we learned that we cannot ever copy and paste our work. One thing my cabinet, they understand, we don't copy and paste our budgets. We don't copy and paste our organizational charts. We don't copy and paste our initiatives. We don't copy and paste our projects. Every single year, we selectively abandon initiatives, we adopt initiatives, we carry on initiatives. But the way we've done business and the way that Hillsborough did business in the last 50 years, we have to be able to create change, and every single day we do that through selectively abandoning processes, validating best works, in an effort to be able to create the greatest moments of learning every single day within our school district. When we talk about, in Hillsborough County, my cabinet, they understand, you can change it, they understand that when they come and bring their budget, they have to defend their budget as, and also their org chart as if they're in Shark Tank. And that's the way that we do not only our cabinet and our finances, but we do that for every vendor that engages with us that touches instructional content every single day. They have to come to the end of the year, talk about what's working, what's not, and what we do differently. And on the spot, we cancel the contract, renegotiate the contract, or we move forward to continue to do special things for children. When we talk about transformation, in our world, in our space, we have to be willing to transform every facet within the organization and prioritize that, whether that be systems of learning, whether that be professional development, whether that be curriculum adoption. We're looking at adopting Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 curriculums. What are we doing from assessments? How are we addressing the culture that we creating a culture of care every single day within our organization, and making certain that our strategic plans are driving every element within our organization every single day. And in this transformation, this is all about rebuilding. This is creating systemic change management. This is not something we do behind closed doors, that every pocket of your advocacy groups, every pockets of your major organizations in your community, your cabinet members, regional superintendents, principals, teachers, support staff have to be an instrumental part of adopting these processes, understanding them, and being champions of change every day within the work. Change it, sir. In addition to this, in our organizational demands, they change along the way. In the last 2.5 years, we've learned that we had to revolutionize our work every day. So when we talk about the spaces of learning, we're face-to-face, when we knew and we only knew for so well. We're a small pocket only lended to have the virtual model. What we learned in the pandemic is that our employees can work from a virtual perspective, and our students and our families may like it better than having that face-to-face consistency. One or the other, and we just talked about it, doesn't work in isolation. You have to have that blended model to be able to serve your clientele in a way that they feel supported, in a way they feel that they can transition through learning platforms that allow them to obtain success, whatever that may look like. And in that process, we had to be able in Hillsborough County to create different healths of wellness, different transparency, public-facing dashboards, from finances to analytics to attendance to behavior to progress monitoring by school level, by grade level. We were the first in the state to launch a COVID dashboard that talked about every single COVID case that we identified, whether it be a personnel or a student in that particular school. And we were first in the state to be able to launch an ESSER dashboard as well to show the community how we leverage every dollar and every cent related to funding, related to federal money, and how we didn't use that money for soft money for hard positions, which historically Hillsborough County got into a little bit of mess when they had the Gates grants, which was around $100 million that we had. And we knew we had to be able to transform how we engaged our community during the pandemic, related to what did our family and community engagement look like, and how to create a division that had a full court press to go into every facet and every pocket of our community in an effort to connect with our first educators, which are our parents and their advocates who stay with them along the way. And then being able to create the most robust CTE programs that allow our students to be successful. One thing we understand in education, our roles and responsibility is to create full option graduates. Those who are transitioned to post-secondary education, those who transition to the workforce, and those who transition to the military. Those are the three prongs. We have to create the greatest pathways and have stackable credentials that will lead and allow our students to be successful. We can change the slide. I'm sorry, if I had a clicker, I've been rolling. We're good to go. We can change it. And in this, there has to be the greatest accountability. And I only show you this. This is what we, when we have all of our, we talk about, having district coaches, district resource teachers, district specialists, content specialists, regional superintendents, principals, assistant principals. This is a dashboard that we implement in Hillsborough County to create accountability of where our staff at the district level and our school level, where are they spending their time? How long are they in the classrooms? What's their trends and patterns? What do we see? So we can have deeper discussions, and this breaks down to narratives to identify what's working, what's not, and what we can do differently. But all this to show is that we have to have a way to capture analytically what curriculum implementation looks like, where do we see pitfalls, how are we addressing intervention, how are we scaffolding instruction, what are we doing for differentiation, in a way to serve our children every single day within the organization. It tells us hours, times, how long we're in classrooms, and what are we seeing in classrooms to have greater conversations as I meet with all of my regional superintendents often, and at the same token, every one of my executive directors and directors of content, to push their thinking and to push their professional development, so it's not sit and get, but it's openly active, maximizing moments of learning, real-time coaching in classrooms every day that we can get in there and be able to transform our work and change, sir. With this said, we have to be able to meet our digital natives where they are. And we had, in Hillsborough County, we were working with DOS and 8-track upon my arrival, and we had to be able to transition to, to come, and we are now transitioning to a new ERP system, a new SIM system, a new SIS system, all to be more sophisticated, to have a one-stop shop to be able to serve our students. When we transitioned in Hillsborough County from face-to-face to remote learning, we had 22,000 laptops only on hand for 220,000 plus students. We were not ready in any way, shape, or form. And also, we talk about personnel. Every educator in our school district brought their own device to work every single day. It's like taking a mechanic and not giving them a wrench, a tool, all of the resources they need to be successful. So now, 2.5 years later, since this implementation, we are from 22,000 devices to 184,000 devices, leveraging federal categorical money to have the flexibility to be able to transition and meet our students, to allow them to be able to compete, whether they're in face or whether they're virtually, every single day, so we can maximize before, during, and after school initiatives. The same token, we have moved from a 6-to-1 ratio more to a little bit less than a 2-to-1 ratio. And it's not about having these in every one of your classrooms. It's about having the accessibility. Removing the desktops, from any of our facilities, and moving to make certain that every device that we purchase and that we have is all mobile, and having that flexibility to move around to connect with our students. No different than we're moving to flexibility related to our furniture that we have in here today, that's all on wheels, instead of having things that are stationary, which is 1982 thinking. So we've got to be innovative in that approach. And then also being able to address equity of where we are. We provide hotspots to many pockets of our community that may have, rough spots of connectivity. And it's about identifying those heat maps, not only of socially, economically challenged students and families, but being able to identify from a device perspective and a wireless perspective to who has that connectivity, what can we do to fill those gaps so we can create systemic change and allowing students to be able to compete every single day. And then reimagining technology, what we talk about. The other thing is about not only taking the most ambitious strategies that we have and driving them, but also creating a culture of care within the organization. And we can change this. We can change, sir. And what does that look like? You can change it. You can change slide. Sorry. I don't know if it got stuck. And what does that look like? We have to recognize first that we are facing a national crisis. This is in Florida. When the Great Resignation article came out, there were 9,000 or 4,000 instructional vacancies. It was months ago, I would say April, May. Currently, at the end of the summer, there's 9,000 instructional vacancies. And I can tell you right now, with 14,000 teachers that we serve every single day, I have 400 instructional vacancies. And some of those at the most challenging schools with the most needy students. And, from when we started the school year, we started with 600 instructional vacancies. I took 300 of my certified personnel in the district and deployed them to schools systemically. I had some people that openly didn't like it. You know what? I came to deal with adults. Well, if you're in education, you're here to deal with children. You're here to help children have a sense of hope and a sense of care every single day. So that's what we're doing to be able to address. In addition to this, you can change slides, where we're trying to address talent management. We're trying to win the talent war every single day. One way is through compensation. And some of us are strapped. I'm strapped on a financial recovery plan every single day, trying to, get us to a point where we're fluent. The other way is through culture, systemically hiring champions who will create the greatest culture along the way. Today, on the drive here, I got a notice that a teacher was going to resign, one of the best teachers in our district. I called her on the way here. It was all about the way that she felt from her administration. The brand new principal, firecracker principal, understand systems and processes, understand data management. But you know what? He wants to poke the bear. He wants to poke the bear. He wants to push and create the greatest accountability. But there's a balance. You have to have a sandpaper glove, and you have to have a velvet glove. And you have to know when to use both of those. And you have to have a balance in order to create success. So being able to coach her back to be able to come to work and focus on kids and not the adults, and using this as a learning moment for our principals to create the culture where individuals are on their edge, not only to learn, but to teach every single day. While all this was going on, 200 in Hillsborough County, before I took it, we had the largest number of D&F schools in the state. We had 28 2.5 years ago. We had 39 persistently low-performing schools, the most in the state of Florida, and we were ranked 35th in the state of Florida as well. One thing, while we understood the pandemic was driving, in front of us, and it was changing the way we did business, one thing we never did is lose focus. I've talked about the most ambitious strategies. We changed every element that we could because what was being implemented wasn't working. We had longitudinal data that showed it, historical data that showed it, and coming in, and I don't say this in a bragging moment, but coming in the first 2.5 months, I changed 40 principals immediately. Those who couldn't understand how to be an instructional leader, a talent manager, an operational expert, and a culture and climate builder. Those are 4 things I need you to do, and do them well every single day. Not 2 of the 4, but have the will set and the mindset to be champions of change for those 4 elements to be able to create systemic work. But looking at every one of our curriculums, we were decentralized. That means we had 8 regional superintendents selecting their own curriculum and implementing what they wanted to do. Well, that's why you have 28 D&F schools. That's why you have 39 persistently low-performing schools. That's why the state wants to shut down 4 or 5 of your schools immediately. I had to beg them, hey, I just got here. Let me do my work. I come from Duval County as the chief of schools for 18 years, and in Clay County as superintendent. And then we focused on acceleration versus remediation, which we all had to do. Redesign curriculum guides, connected resources, making certain that resources aligned to standards, and created the greatest approach to being able to have a number, you can change it, sir, a number of offerings that will lead us to analytical success. And what do? We moved from number 35 in the state, and just came out this summer, to number 19 in the state. You can change it. First time ever, the highest ever in Hillsborough County. We moved 28 D&F schools to 5. We moved 39 persistently low-performing schools to 18, all because we took the most ambitious instructional strategies, and we focused on defining common language, best practices, and work, and we were relentless in that. Understanding we had a pandemic, and I'm going to tell you, you got to do it gracefully, because I almost lost my job in the first 8 months. I'm just telling you, leading behind the screen, I was in a fetal position. I'm just going to tell you, you come from being, runner-up for Superintendent of the Year to about to be unemployed in a district because they don't know you care, and you're cutting positions, and you're changing, and you're poking the bear in every school. But one thing we did is that we stood up for kids every single day. And then we are to a place, you can change it, where we created the greatest change in the highest marks ever. You can change it, sir, within our school district. You can change it. I wish it was touchscreen, it'd be pretty cool. But we also talk about, while COVID was our pandemic, our real pandemic is mental health. The mental health and capacity of every one of our employees. They are tired. They are exhausted. The social and political complexities that are penetrating our classrooms are overwhelming. But my job is to be their downfield blocker. And it's hard to do it every single day when everything is coming at you differently in that uniqueness that we see. So we have to understand in every one of our schools, do we understand our staff? Are they thriving? Are they suffering? Are they struggling every single day? What's their mental capacity? Do we know their daily stressors? Do we know why they're burnt out? Are we overloading them with materials and content and tasks that don't matter for kids? Don't be afraid to work through some of that stuff with your teams. Do we know their well-being? And you may say, you know what, I don't need to know this. You need to know their social well-being, their financial well-being, their physical well-being, their community well-being. Are they connected to the community? Do they feel they're properly compensated? And if not, how are you going to solve it? Do they feel that they connect with someone every day? I used to laugh at Gallup when we took the Gallup survey, and the question was, do you have a best friend at work? I'm like, what are you talking about? I come to work to do my job. And openly, it is important to have someone at work that you care about through relationships, because that builds the bond that create individuals who want to stay within your organization. But it's all about understanding your strengths of your team. Do we know their strengths? Do we know their areas of opportunity? Do we know how to move from a boss to a coach? I got many people who love the titles. Are we rolling up our sleeves and driving PLCs? Are we driving coaching cycles? Are we driving lesson studies? Are we actively engaged? Are we just sitting there walking to a classroom when we walk in and tell someone what's wrong? where there needs validation of what's right and bite-sized actionable feedback to transform the work to be able to create systemic change for teachers to fall in love with their profession again, to feel that they can create a difference along the way. You can change it, sir. And understand those skills. Moving path, we have to be courageous in this process, connected, we have to be servant, and we have to be optimistic. You can change it, sir. Next steps for us in Hillsborough County, what does it look like? You know, you can change it, sir. For us, our path moving forward is that we are creating master principals, creating master teachers, to be able to release them, you know, master principals release them, you know, they'll be at their buildings for 4 days a week, and one day they'll go and they'll mentor other principals to be able to build their knowledge, to be able to build their trust, to be able to build their operational and talent management side of it. We are working to be able to focus on relevant connectivity of what technology looks like, not only today, but 5 and 10 years from now, to be able to purchase state-of-the-art equipment with, you know, visual learning. We're in a process of building platforms through our VRs where teachers can go and brand new teachers can put on interactive digital classrooms that they can see and interact with about how they would address and attack situations along the way. That's what PD needs to look like as we move forward. How many people want to go to a PD when they sit and get like this? You're like, right now, you're like, please, someone pull the fire alarm. What does he stop talking? Right? I mean, it's no different than we have students in our classrooms. We just talked about it. They will mentally check out or they will physically check out. The same way with teachers with professional development. Do we survey them? Do we know what they want? Do they know what it looks like? And we have to redesign that. And we're creating recruiting plans. Our recruiting plans have to be different today than they ever were before. If we are not at every college graduation, when they walk off the stage and have a Hillsborough County table and they walk off, we will lose the talent war every day. We have got to be embedded in universities or university halls where they eat lunch. We ought to have tables there twice a month to be able to recruit. Everybody take your sign bonus, but will they stay for 6 months? Will they stay for 5 months? This is why every time we hire someone, we have to implement a 30, 60, 90-day check-in. How are you doing? How's it going? How can we help you? What's going on? If you don't, you lose them. So being able to create plans. In Hillsborough County, the majority of students that we serve are Hispanic. And we have 12% of our workforce is Hispanic. Now, how does that look like? Where do you give children an opportunity to walk down the hallway and have someone that looks like them every single day? Because you can say what you want to say. Color matters. And you have to be able to create a highly rich, diverse workforce that looks like your children and your students every day within your organization. And then also being able to have 360 accountability. Where's the accountability? It's everyone. School board, leadership, teachers, support staff, students, and parents. And it has to be defined accountability. And it has to be continuously reviewed to determine who needs to be able to pick their lens up. And there has to be equity in the forefront of everything. When you walk into a classroom, do you see students interacting where there's evidence of equity of voice in our classrooms? Do you see it in certain pockets of a classroom? Do you see it with a certain ethnic group in a classroom? Do we see equity taking place where students are facilitating that process and it's coming alive along the way? These are QR codes. You can scan them if you want to. We had to redefine our work related to the 4 principles of excellent instruction. This is what we identify. You can snap a picture if you want to, a QR, and it will tell you the 4 principles of excellent instruction. This is what we walk classrooms and we look for. We're very clear about it. It is common language across our district is what we look for. This is also a QR code of the role of a principal and a role of a principal supervisor, which is completely defined. If you took a picture of it, you can click on it and it will show you, it'll take you right to that document. It defines the role of everyone that we implement within our school district. You can change it. We can send this out, you can have it. And then that's my parent presentation. It's over. It's like so many more slides, but I don't know. It's okay. One thing I really wanted to show you is that.
Oops. Is that too loud? Would you turn that down?
Oh.
No? I'm walking on.
Sorry, you can go to the next slide. I wanted to show one.
One more thing? Okay, and I'm walking on to ask you questions.
Yeah, they're out here. you'll have the presentation. The presentation, you'll be able to send it to you. It unpacks more information about how leadership matters. You're only as good as your next hire. And you're only as good as your developmental systems that we have. And there has to be organizational goals where we talk about Hillsborough Strong. And Hillsborough Strong is related to being, data oriented, to make certain that we understand efficacy, to make certain that we create common language within our school districts along the way. And the rest of the presentation just unpacks every one of those dimensions about how we create a culture of efficacy, a culture of responsiveness, a culture of accountability within Hillsborough County, and one that just continues to identify how we've made solutions to be able to win the talent war. We couldn't hire anyone in the last couple, I'm not say anyone, at Groves. We needed 600 positions. So we went to our local universities and our colleges, and we are now hiring fellows. We're hiring juniors and seniors at the college level that are coming in, and we are training them to be interventionists, to be able to work with small groups in every one of our classrooms in our underperforming schools, so that we can have and maximize two things: have more, more boots on the ground, more training eyes to be able to focus on literacy and mathematics, and also with inquiry-based learning with science, and then also to be able to create a longer, stronger bench of teachers for the future. And that's what it takes. So, we're at a part where if we don't change our mentalities, if we don't create the greatest spaces, and for us right now, we're looking to go and buy, and we got 5 districts in Hillsborough County, we're going to look to find 5 coffee shops that we can transform for virtual learning for our students, especially those who want to be virtual. That may gravitate more students to our organization versus them sitting at home, or versus them transitioning to a charter school that may have more flexibility, or a private school that has more flexibility. The days of change, and what you do is you stand up content core teachers in those areas, and you have like a Starbucks way of learning for your children that's mobile spaces in this process. So I can speak forever. I won't do it. I spare you so that no one pulls a fire alarm on me today. But one thing I say this is that never lose your passion, never lose your focus, never lose your greatest mentality to create systemic change for children. When you do that, you'll win every single day.
Let's give me a hand. Okay, so I'm walking on camera, stand here.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so awesome. Very well done.
Thank you, ma'am.
And I mean that very sincerely.
I had to get a little better on changing slides.
Yeah. If we had
That's
a
all right.
picture, we don't have one here.
That's okay.
Well, learning councils all over the country all the time, talking to superintendents like you, pulling data together, running big national surveys. And I know Chris sort of briefed you a little bit on what has gone on here earlier. And what actually came out of the pandemic was the data for us is pointing at, can't get enough teachers. The nation is 1 million shy right now.
Sure.
And people are still leaving for homeschooling. And another whole portion are off-grid, like completely. They're in what we call the chaos of the open markets of digital. So it's not even really organized learning in any way. So the pressures keep coming.
Yep.
So we've identified a sort of model shift. And the number one emerging issue in big districts is really logistics. It's the logistics of your teachers, when our survey showed this, where they're spending up to 30 hours a week on the finding of things, even in your systems, on the vetting of things into lesson sequences, and then the way that they're distributing them has them then being pelted with massive amounts of back and forth email or text traffic, and it's overwhelming them. So we backed it up into the challenge is logistics now. Your mechanism is human. How do you backwards engineer perfected human intersection with the student so they all get 100% personalized paths without logistics? So that's the challenge.
Yeah, that continues to be in the forefront we're trying to continue to solve. When you look at the running around of chasing content, chasing resources, that openly is not attractive for anyone, and it just eats up time. While we pay teachers in Hillsborough and everybody else 8 hours a day, we get 13, 14 hours out of them easily before what they do before, during, and after school. One thing we do is we lean on our curriculum and academic services and professional development department to create the greatest curriculum guides that links all of the resources that are aligned to standards, to make certain we have high expectations, high quality content in front of them, so they don't have to go chase it around. The other thing we do is when we look at and unpacking data analytics, while we have all these different suites of, we use iReady, we've used a little bit of Achieve 3000, we have identified the big ticket reports that will allow them to use toolkits, so they don't have to dig through all this analytic in order to differentiate. It's already done for them. So if we can solve time with them by doing all of the background work, that will allow them just to focus on creating an instructional framework that allows them to come alive.
Yeah.
The 15 minutes of whole group then transition into independent practice, small group conferencing, and other differentiation opportunities. But the biggest thing is, people say we need more bodies. That's absolutely correct. But if you don't have systems in place for an instructional framework and curriculums and contents and back work done with your curriculum guys that are sophisticated and actually match the standard and fill gaps to the basals that we purchased, then we will struggle and people will chase it along the way. But that comes with relentless training of staff of how to leverage and use all the resources available. The biggest thing we face is when you have 25,000 employees, they may not know how to use what you have readily available.
And some of them go rogue. I'm just going to tell you.
Teacher paid teachers out there.
There's a lot of that out there. Well, we have a lot of senior executives in the room. We also have some teachers. Let's give this guy a hand. So.